Afternoon all. I had quite an instructive loss, I guess, last night. I was playing for Muswell Hill Chess Club at home against Hendon, and as usual Hendon give us a right thrashing, but not with using any GMs this year. They dominated the league last year with playing several GMs in some matches, like especially against King's Head. But anyway, this was a fairer match. I was against C.Mures, who I've lost to twice before, and I kicked off with E4. I was white for a change against him. He played D6. The theme of this game is not quite Dr. Optimum, and I want to explain that first before getting into the game details now. When I was at uni, there was this guy. I was doing major in computer science, and there was this person who was kind of a computing genius. He'd built his own computers when he was younger. Let's call him RK for a bit of an anonymity. Anyway, I just remember, the first lecture I went to in computer science, there was this thing to sort of do a parse tree, and I was like struggling to do it. I was like half an hour later, and I was still doing it. And he had done it in like the first minute. It was like seeing someone just write from the top left of the page to the bottom right, just as though they were a computer or something. Anyway, I was impressed with his programming skills. And one of the things he said, he had a reputation for is being known as Dr. Optimum. And in coding terms, or at the time, with the restraints on hardware then, it was more important to write optimal code. Nowadays, with gigabytes of RAM, etc., who cares about optimal code? There's other more important considerations, how quick to implement your requirements. That's the main thing. It's all driven by speed, of delivery, and whether code is optimal or not is less relevant, one would think. But so this idea of optimization, anyway, in chess. So are we doing less moves to achieve the same purpose? And what would be the expression of that? Would it be like open games where you try and hack out the opponent's king as quickly as possible? The problem with that is you don't end up storing any advantages in the position. If you've got a more closed or semi-closed pawn structure like Steinitz has shown us, you can accumulate advantages, you can store your advantages. Often the opening games, they do just fizzle out, and sometimes it's better to put the opponents under a torture rack. Sometimes it's better to play quietly rather than just going all out for a quick kill. So we're not talking about quick kills, but I think there are particular scenarios, especially racing scenarios. Like if you're racing to the opponent's king on the king side, so you've castled opposite sides, and the opponent's racing to attack you on the queen side, then maybe optimizing your attack or throwing some spanners in the works for the opponent's attack is useful. You see that in the King's Indian. Sometimes some subtle moves in the King's Indian, like A6, might slow down the queen side onslaught that you get on with the king side onslaught. So this idea of optimization is very interesting in chess. The number of moves required to do something. But another racing scenario, though, which is featured in this game, is the idea of the pass pawn race. And I had a similar sort of game a few weeks ago where I was on the, inverted commas, the lucky side, with, a knight down, same as this game. But we'll see how this game goes. So optimization, what are your thoughts in chess about, where is it critical to play optimally? Okay, so that's the intro. Okay, let's see. So d4, knight f6, knight c3, plays e5, and I'm not really sure of this. It's Philidor the fence kind of theory. So knight f3, knight bd7. I think chess games, when I looked it up, it was called like the lion variation or something. But bishop c4 is a popular move. Just dying that sensitive f7. I know it looks like a bit of a standard stereotypical move, but here, it is kind of a potential pitfall. F7 in some variations, so it's useful to put the bishop on e7 as long as it's not a target later for black, like with c6 and b5. But there's something you can do about that anyway, which is what I do next. I play another nice move, a4. So far I'm quite pleased with my play here in retrospect, but here is where I go wrong theoretically. c6, you see, black really doesn't want to play ed to release the tension, although in principle black might be getting pressure on e4. There's a lot of downsides. f7 might be weakened with rook e8. So knight g5 might actually be effective without black, if black doesn't play h6. So waiting for ed, I think, is a trick in this, and if necessary, to play the move h3, just to prompt knight b6s and bishop g4s. So say queen c7, just rook e1, say b6 again, another waiting move is possible, and this would be fine for white. I think it's better. And then if there is a need to do something, there's also the option here, I think, of sometimes just playing d5, just to mark a space advantage out, or maybe first moving the bishop and then d5. So that kind of thing, I think, would be more interesting than this. When I played, I released the tension. I think gives black a good game. Black, I think, is virtually equal now out of the opening. So queen e2, queen c7, and it's difficult actually to provoke a weakness. I wanted this next move to provoke a weakness, but it had completely wrong tactical justifications when I played it. I was thinking h6, and this would be a brilliancy game with f4, because I reasoned f takes, and if knight e8, then g6, and all of a sudden f7's a major problem, and with a sort of very interesting attack. But the thing is, checking this with an engine, actually, this completely falls flat. Just to taking here on f4, actually, because then there's no f pawn to play f takes and g6. So say takes, check, and now here one would think, well, I can play bishop e3, but no, bishop c5, and if I had reached this would be a lost position, because now bishop takes is queen c5 check, then picking up the knight. And obviously this is hardly any compensation for losing a knight. So the whole concept, one of the concepts of knight g5 was that h6 wasn't possible, but in fact it is possible. Okay, so anyway, he played not quite a great move, I think, in retrospect, even though it had a good outcome later. So bishop b3, bishop g4, and he's solid now. He's solidifying his f7 issue with this maneuver, so it seems quite kind of sensible. But the problem is he's hemming in his bishop a bit, and I try and get overexcited here again. I was thinking, here after h4 he might play h6, and then I might have h5, and again with this lovely idea of this hg, but that doesn't happen. He just plays h5. I'm thinking, why am I playing this like a blitz game? I should have seen h5 immediately. So again, it's a bit shaky, my calculations, and a bit optimistic. I think there's an air of optimism in my moves, which isn't justified quite by the resources available. So king h2 anyway. So I'm trying now for a hack attack on the g file. Okay, so rook a e8, and I'm thinking, well, I think this is designed against f4 ever, because e4 will be really under fire as well. That would be crazy anyway, because the queen is on diagonal. So rook g1, bishop c5, play bishop e3, he protects it, and now I see, well, I want to try and tear open this attack. So I play g takes. After bishop takes, I'm thinking now that knight h3 might be a useful treat, because then rook g5, instead of messing about with say rook g2 or rook g3, just to play knight h3 here. And there's a beautiful variation I'd started calculating here, knight h7, which is this queen g2 idea. Because after g6, okay, to defend against that mate threat, that not very unsubtle mate threat, I was thinking here that after bishop h6, okay, the preliminary he takes on g1, so I'm losing the exchange, but I'm regaining it back. And if he doesn't let me regain it back, so say he takes here, this is actually a beautiful mate variation here. I wonder if you can spot it if I give you 10 seconds starting from now. Okay, this is the beauty I'd spotted, and I think he must have spotted as well. Check here, and then bishop f6 mate, so using that pin on f7, and it's blocked in like knight, stopping the king escape. So I thought that was a beauty to consider, but he sidestepped that, and he forces me into an endgame which is uncomfortable now, because in this endgame, well, if I want to do something about h4, so I have to shield h4 now. So yeah, I mean, he really did get the better of me with this manoeuvre, I guess, to reach this very comfortable endgame. And now, you know, what are the properties of this endgame situation? Well, one horrible property is, unfortunately, he's naturally going to play rook d8 and control the d file. Also, f3 is a bit weak. On the upside, I thought, well, this bishop's still okay on this diagonal, and maybe there's a4 and this kind of manoeuvre, and I'll get some nice squares, at least for these two pieces. And this king might come here later, so this bishop might be eyeing just f3. So that was my consideration of this endgame. I thought, well, maybe I've got some chances. So rook g2 was also a nice discovery, because I thought, hold on, do I have to play rook g3? No, because f6 actually weakens g6. So bishop f3, now there's rook takes g6. So that's fine to play rook g2. So that's optimizes, I suppose, my plan of I can protect the second rank at least to this rook d8 move. And I can move my king there to try and tie this bishop to f3. So far so good. There's wriggling opportunities in this endgame. So a5, so king g3. So that plan's accomplished, safeguarding f3. Brings his king in. Now the second plan, get the knight more active. So this plan's starting to be accomplished. And now it looks a bit rosy because of knight e6. I'm thinking I'm getting back into this game. b6, I play knight e6, king h6. Looks a bit awkward to put the king there. You know, if I can get a rook round one day, there'll be mating nets, you know, with that knight on e6. So anyway, a6, I also thought a bit of a queenside squeeze wouldn't go amiss here. This pawn could be, you know, potentially dangerous past pawn if I ever won, you know, a7. And there's ideas later if this rook wasn't there, you know, if I could hit a7. Okay, it's not beyond the scope of the knight, although it is obviously beyond the scope of the bishop because that's a dark square pawn. Okay, knight d6. But here I thought this is uncomfortable actually. He might be playing f5, he might try and just undermine here and play f4, and it looks like a dangerous attack. Something really strange though happened here. It seems, I think he slightly misplayed it. After rook f2, you know, if he plays actually the move c5, which seems like a good idea to try and restrict the scope of the bishop. But I kick the rook now with c3, just keeping hold of the d4 square though. I was fully expecting rook d3, which then carries the threat of knight takes e4. But he lets me get a rook on the d file essentially by this game continuation. Check. Now he plays rook b1. And okay, I'm under great pressure here. And there's a little trap set. He's tempting me. He wants me to play rook d2, hitting the knight. But he's got like bishop f3. This would be terrible. Because bishop f3, rook takes. Then he's got like check. And then he'll be picking up the bishop. And I don't think it's that particularly pleasant. Although even in this position, I don't know, maybe actually, I don't know, it needs specific calculation. Okay, so there is that question here. Rook b1, could I have just done rook d2? Actually, let's just engine check this. Was rook d2 possible? Now I'm curious. Is bishop takes f3 a crushing move? Because I thought, you know, this check would be dangerous. Oh, apparently this is no good actually. This is playable. Okay, because I am hitting that bishop. So fine, I'd miscalculated there as well. But anyway, I safeguarded my position with this next move, bishop d5. And okay, black, according to Ribka, is slightly better still. So g5, but that now is a blunder. It weakens f5, which means later, once I maneuver a knight to f5, that's pretty useful. So here, white goes up theoretically, and now I play this other plan, knight d8, to try and, you know, get a7. So bishop e8, and he's put on the defensive now. Rook d2. Finally, I seize the d file. So things are looking really on the up. Ribka even likes white's position, and we do a pawn swap now. After rook a1. I play knight b7. Okay, so tactically, I want to get some pressure, you know, maybe against the black king as well in some lines. He plays knight b5. Now I play bishop c4, setting a nice trap of my own. If rook a6, knight d6, hitting b5 and e8. So far, for the first 42 moves, okay, from a poor opening, a terrible knight g5 concept, I seem to have wrested a few positional trump cards here.